Hey everyone, it's Tobes, and welcome to your second monitor. Today our commander is Noctis, Heir. Ugh, not that one. Okay, this is much better. Thanks to Flexing42 for requesting this commander. I admit, I'm not very familiar with Final Fantasy in general, but a little bit of reading has caught me up, I think. Noctis is the main protagonist from Final Fantasy XV, the Crown Prince and heir, apparently, to Lucius. He travels with his friends who are into cooking and photography, tootling around at a sweet ride as he falls into the main plot of the game. He has the ability to throw his weapon and perform a warp strike, moving quickly and unexpectedly to defeat his enemies. Pretty cool. I'm excited to share what I put together for Noctis, but before we get started, let's go over my deck building template. I like to build my decks around my commander. I want to show off why it's such a cool card and why I built a deck for it. So I take about 30 cards and put it toward doing whatever my commander asks of me. This is our game plan. It's what we do at the table and how we try to win. 30 more cards go towards supporting that game plan in the form of card advantage, acceleration, and interaction pieces. I usually run 1 or 2 Wraths, sometimes more, like today, since it plays into the game plan, sometimes none at all, and I always keep to a floor of 38 lands. That way I can always hit my land drops and I can cast my spells and, play the game. So let's talk about our commander. Noctis, Heir is a 2/3 legendary human noble for Esper mana, a white, a blue, and a black. It says whenever a creature we control enters during combat, we may attach target equipment we control to target creature we control. And it has Warp Strike. For 3 generic mana, we can exile Noctis and then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control, tapped and attacking at the beginning of that player's next declare attacker step, and it can't be blocked that combat. First, I want to address Flexing42, who suggested that Noctis would make a great ninjas commander. I don't disagree. Noctis' ability to toss equipment onto creatures who sneak in during combat is pretty tantalizing when it comes to building a deck around him. It's just a cool effect. That's what I started with when I began this deck's construction. But a ninja deck needs ninjas, obviously, creatures who can slip in to replace unblocked attackers and get their own sabotage triggers. It also needs attackers who are evasive enough to end up unblocked and ninjutsuable. In a 100-card deck, it's a bit of a balancing act to include enough of both types of creatures so that you can be sure to draw the ones you need when you need them, and adding other cards to make your creatures evasive only takes up slots you could be filling with, more cool creatures. You see where I'm going. Adding in an equipment package, cards that necessarily don't fill either of these creature roles, means fewer numbers of all of them. It means both that the deck is less consistent, since there's no guarantee of finding all 3 kinds of pieces, and also has less variety, since the times you'll see them all come together will be with the same 10 to 12 equipment and ninjas each time. There's nothing wrong with that kind of deck, of course, but it's not really the way I build my decks. During construction, however, I realized how cool Noctis is on his own. His second ability triggers his first, strapping a weapon to him as he warps in unblockably, but it can also do some other fun tricks. He can use his Warp Strike to let us attack with him the same turn he hits the battlefield, simulating haste. We can also use it to protect him, essentially phasing him out until he returns during our next attack step. And every time we use it, we can suit him up with a strong equipment that lets him hit hard without the need for a cohort of ninjas to support him. So, this deck is about winning with commander damage. Our goal is to sneak in with Noctis to slay our opponents by counting to 21. We Warp Strike our way past our opponent's defenses. We don't even bother to declare Noctis as an attacker unless the way is already open to him. This means holding up 3 mana to activate his ability every turn, so we play out equipment with low casting costs and high power bonuses. We don't care how much they cost to equip, because Noctis will auto-equip himself with the best of them each time he re-enters. I've included some neat forms of support for this game plan. We have ways to get rewarded for Noctis doing his thing, both by cards that care when our permanents leave play, and cards that give us value when they enter, like Noctis himself. Since Noctis' trigger only equips him with 1 weapon at a time, we have ways to sneak other equipment into his hands during combat at instant speed. We have ways to protect our commander from hexproof and indestructible effects to a little light stacks as a treat, as well as repeatable card advantage and recursion for our artifacts. We're very low on creatures, so we have a bit of token generation for blockers and more than our usual number of Wraths, all of which Noctis can dodge to reset the board and buy us time. This is a weird deck. It feels like Voltron, but it has the vibe of a ninja's deck, if not the creature type. We choose our opponents carefully, watching their hands and untapped mana as we stage our attacks in a deliberate, selective way. We protect our commander, but also rely on him to carry us to victory. Our curve is aggressive, and our turns play out like a different game than typical Magic. This must be how Noctis feels in battle, treating his enemy's defenses and the distance to them like they're irrelevant as he flashes around the battlefield. That said, it's hard to guess how he sees things, considering how much trouble he has articulating his feelings and how he tends to pull back when conversations turn serious. If he had his way, he'd prefer to be spending time with his friends, taking drives and playing games and casting lines into the water. On the other hand, when the chips are down, he's deadly and untouchable in combat, leaving his enemies thinking the same thing he probably is, that they'd rather be fishing. You'll enjoy this deck if you would like to try an unusual playstyle that rewards planning and decisiveness, or if you like the idea of every turning feeling like you're choosing a new, sweet equipment to bait your hook, then biding your time until you can reel in a victory. So, as usual, this Moxfield list we're going over today is linked in the video's description. At the bottom of it, you will find a considering section, chock full of cards that I considered putting into Noctis, but ultimately which didn't make the cut for me. However, if you have a bigger budget or a smaller one, if you have a different focus you want to take, like if you want to start your own Noctis deck that really does focus on ninjas, or if you like what I did and you want to go even harder than I did with it, I mean, good luck, but I'm sure it's possible, then that considering section is a great place to start when you build your own Noctis Heir Apparent deck. So let's get started. We're going to begin with the biggest section in this deck. It's our equipment section. These are all things that we want to put on Noctis so that he can swing in and do a lot of damage and get our opponents out of the game. We're going to begin with Colossus Hammer, with of course the Final Fantasy Commander printing. This is a single generic mana for an equipment that equips for 8. But we don't care if it equips for 8, since Noctis is going to auto-equip it every time he comes in, if this is the one we choose. It says equipped creature gets +10/+10 and loses flying. So 2 hits with the Colossus Hammer on a Noctis knocks someone out of the game. We're doing a total of 22 commander damage to them. It doesn't matter that he doesn't have flying because he isn't blockable anyway if we warp strike him in. So Colossus Hammer is a great hit for us and is also going to be a little bit of a removal magnet for our opponents. If they have ways to blow up our artifacts, they're probably going to go after the Colossus Hammer because it just does so much, which is fine with us. It's just a single mana. We've got plenty of other things we can get for a similar cost, but this is a pretty good one. So yeah, a nice hit for us. Next up, surprising me, is Doc Ock's Tentacles. This is a card that I wouldn't expect to go in this deck because of how it works. This is a 1 mana equipment that equips for 5 and gives the equipped creature +4/+4. That's already pretty good. But whenever a creature we control with mana value 5 or greater enters, we may attach this equipment to it. There are no creatures in this deck that will trigger this, except the backside of one of board wipes. We'll get to that soon, and it will actually auto-equip Doc Ock's Tentacles. However, for 1 mana, +4/+4 power and toughness bonus is pretty solid. It makes our commander into a 6/7, so that we can do 4 hits with that, and that's enough to knock someone out. A little bit slow, but we have a way to put plenty of other things on our commander in the process. And remember, we're only warp striking our commander when we have to. If we can get in without being blocked or dealt with anyway, then we don't need to use the warp strike. We can just leave them equipped, add more equipment to them, and swing in. We don't have a lot of ways to add evasion to our commander simply because we're relying on his warp strike, but there are some, and Doc Ock's Tentacles can really make a big difference with that. Dragonfire Blade is a lot of fun. I really like this card for any commander that cares about equipment that has at least 3 colors. 2 colors is fine, but 3 colors is great. For a single generic mana, we get an equipment that equips for 4, but that equip costs 1 less for each color of the creature it targets. So since Noctis is 3 colors, this only equips for 1 if we want to actually pay to equip it. And it gives the equipped creature +2/+2 and hexproof from monocolored. So if someone tries to use a utter end on Noctis, he's not protected from that. But if they just try to Path to Exile him, that's a monocolored spell, so he's hexproof from that. And it gives +2/+2 for just 1, that's alright. Hilderblade is next. This is from Edge of Eternities, a single black for an equipment that equips for 4 and gives +3/+1. But at the beginning of our end step, if a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn, or a spell was warped this turn, attach this equipment to target creature you control. So this will snap on to one of our creatures thanks to Noctis' ability, including Noctis himself if he's still in play. So if we Flicker Noctis, or I guess Warp Strike him, it's not really Flicker, even though this says the spell was warped this turn, it's kind of a thematic fun thing, then he will have left the battlefield this turn and returned this turn, presumably, to attack. Then at the end step, Hilderblade will attach itself to him so he's ready for next turn. It'll obviously fall off if we have to use his Warp Strike again, but that's fine. This is still a single mana to get a power bonus of 3. Stitcher's Graft also gives us that. For single generic mana, it equips for 2, and it's equipment that gives +3/+3. And it has 2 downsides that Noctis doesn't care about. When the equipped creature attacks, it won't untap during its controller's next untap step, which is fine because we just Warp Strike him in again. He will re-enter tapped and attacking, so it doesn't matter that we couldn't have declared him as an attacker. And when it becomes unattached from a permanent, sacrifice that permanent. Again, not relevant to us, because that permanent, Noctis himself, has already left the battlefield at this point, and therefore can't be sacrificed. When he re-enters, he will be a new game object, so we don't have to sacrifice him then either. So Stitcher's Graft is really just 1 mana to give +3/+3. So it's Giant Growth? Giant Gross, maybe? Here's an adaptive Omni tool. This is from the Aetherdrift Commander product, and I think it's just going to get more expensive because it's great. So if you're looking to buy cards for this deck, this is a good one for any Commander deck that cares about artifacts and equipment and what have you. And I think its price is just going to go up. For 2 generic mana, we get an equipment that equips for 3 and gives the equipped creature +1/+1 for each artifact we control. We have a few different versions of this kind of cranial plating effect. Adaptive Omni tool is one of the best ones because it doesn't just give us this bonus based on the number of equipment we have. It cares about all of our mana rocks as well and our other artifacts. So this is a big power and toughness boost and can often even be bigger than our Colossus Hammer. In addition, whenever the equipped creature attacks, we look at the top 6 cards of our library, we can reveal an artifact from among them, put it in our hand, and put the rest on the bottom in a random order. This doesn't come up all the time in this deck, because not often are we declaring Noctis as an attacker. We would rather Warp Strike him so that we're able to auto-equip one of our equipment for free and make him unblockable. However, this effect is already very strong, and if we do have the opportunity to attack with Noctis, or if we have a different creature in play as well, and we equip the Omni tool onto that creature, we attack with that creature, Noctis enters tapped and attacking, we'll get the attack trigger from that other creature, and then when Noctis comes in, we can always just move the Omni tool onto him. So we can get that trigger as well that way. Next up is Blackblade Reforged. Gotta go in basically every, Voltron equipment deck, because it's just great. For 2 generic mana, we get a legendary equipment that equips for 7, or equips a legendary creature for 3, and gives that equipped creature +1/+1 for each land we control. So it's not exactly cranial plating, but it works pretty similarly, especially because we have plenty of land in our deck. So even if this is just giving, +5/+5 or something, that's a lot. that's putting Noctis to a power of 7, which means 3 hits and our opponent goes down. Conqueror's Flail is next, also the Final Fantasy printing. For 2 generic mana, we get an equipment that equips for 2 and gives the equipped creature +1/+1 for each color among permanents we control. If Noctis is in play, we've maxed that out, so it's +3/+3. That's already good. However, it also says, as long as it's attached to a creature, our opponents can't cast spells during our turn, which is great. It means if we get Noctis to Warp Strike in, and then we attach Conqueror's Flail, yes, they can interact with Noctis before that trigger, the Warp Strike trigger resolves, or I guess it's not the Warp Strike trigger, but Noctis's first ability resolves and attaches the Flail, then if they don't do that, they don't get to cast spells for the rest of our turn. It's a little minor Staxy effect that protects us by, I guess it's a silence effect. Protects Noctis and gives us the ability to just not have to worry for the rest of the turn about our opponents interacting with us, at least in the form of spells. Next up is Actual Cranial Plating. This is 2 generic mana for an equipment that equips for 1 and gives the equipped creature +1/+0 for each artifact we control. So that's the effect we're looking for. However, we can attach it rather than by equipping it by just paying 2 black. This does not say activate only as a sorcery, the way that the equip ability is inherently at sorcery speed. So we can throw cranial plating onto Noctis after his enters trigger has resolved, and we've put a different, hopefully bigger, equipment on him, or more useful equipment. Then we just, before damage, pay 2 black and attach cranial plating as well, and it's going to be giving at least +1/+0, probably more than that, especially if Noctis has a different equipment on as well. Then that's at least +2/+0. So yeah, cranial plating's great for this. Dowsing Dagger is next. I really like this card. I've wanted to see it for so long, ever since original Ixalan, and it just works so well in this deck. For 2 generic mana, we get an equipment that equips for 2, and when it enters, target opponent makes 2 0/2 green plant creature tokens with Defender. So we give one of our opponents a couple of walls. What we do is we tell them, hey, who at the table wants free creatures, some free creature tokens? If I give you some tokens, will you leave me alone for a turn cycle? Something like that. Most times, people will say that they don't want it, but if they are willing to do that, then you've made a great deal and you got something free out of it, which is their goodwill. You get a couple little plants that it doesn't matter if they can block us, because Noctis, when warp striking, can't be blocked. The Dowsing Dagger gives the equipped creature +2/+1, making Noctis into a 4/4. And it says whenever the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, we may transform the dagger. We will transform it into the Lost Veil, which is a land that lets us tap for 3 mana of any one color. This is awesome for us, because it does take one of our equipment out of the rotation, but that equipment was only giving us +2/+1 anyway. That's fine. What it gives us instead is a free land that we didn't have to use a land drop to get, that taps for 3. Tapping for 3 is so important in this deck because that's what it costs to warp strike Noctis. So being able to use this sort of frees up all of our other mana, because it gives us a land that we can kind of just dedicate to activating Noctis. Or because it's able to make colored mana, we can put 3 of our other lands, maybe, or mana sources, some of which might be adding just colorless mana, and just sort of set them by Noctis in order to activate him, and Lost Veil is now subbing in for those mana sources in a better way. So we have a couple of different instances, I should say, of being able to add multiple mana so that we can activate Noctis more cheaply. The Lost Veil is a great one. Next is Gavel of the Righteous. This is a 2 generic mana equipment that equips for 3 generic mana, or allows us to remove a counter from it to equip it. Again, we don't really care about this because we're going to be using Noctis to get it equipped, but what it does is nothing initially. However, at the beginning of combat on our turn, we put a charge counter on it, and now the equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each counter on it. And as long as it has 4 or more counters on it, the equipped creature has double strike. So this seems like it's not that great initially. Even though it is a cheap equipment, it doesn't actually do anything until that first start of combat, which means it gets a counter, and now it gives +1/+1. +1/+1 is not that good for Noctis. We don't really need a short sword here, but it's going to get bigger and bigger, and we're going to need to make more and more strikes with Noctis in order to do some good damage to our opponents. We don't even have to use Gavel of the Righteous early in the game, early in when we've played it. We can just use our other equipment and wait for this to get big. Once it's got at least 3 counters on it, it's now helping us, making Noctis do 5 damage when he attacks, or when he does damage. And once it has 4 counters, it's not only making Noctis into at least a 6-power creature, it's making him into a 6-power double striker, which is fantastic. That's 12. So Gavel of the Righteous is a great card for us to play on turn 2 if it's in our opening hand, and just let it build up. And of course, we can always remove a counter from it if we want to put it onto Noctis or any other one of our creatures. It does set us back a little bit that way, but it saves us the mana if we wanted to use this to equip during a turn that's not just the ones that we are getting Noctis's enters trigger to equip our equipment. Next up is Hero's Blade. 2 generic mana for an equipment that equips for 4 and gives the equipped creature +3/+2, making him into a 5/5. but whenever a legendary creature we control enters, we may attach this equipment to it. This is why Hero's Blade is in the deck. We never choose to put this on Noctis unless it's the only equipment we have, because it'll automatically put itself on on Noctis rather, so we don't even have to choose it with Noctis. It just, we might as well choose it if it's the only equipment. It's just already going to be attached to him by the time it resolves, depending on how we stack the triggers. So yeah, Hero's Blade is here to give us an extra way to put something onto our commander without having to use his trigger on this versus something else. Ogre's Cleaver is next. 2 generic mana for an equipment, equips for 5, gives +5/+0. Very cheap Rise of the Eldrazi equipment. Doesn't do a lot, but it still does a lot because +5 puts Noctis into the 3 hits and you're dead range. So yeah, very cheap and very effective. Open the Armory is next. This is not equipment, but it's in the equipment section because this is 1 and a white for a sorcery that lets us search our library for an aura or equipment card, reveal it, put it in our hand, and shuffle. This lets us draw whichever equipment we need most in that moment. I don't typically like to run tutors, or at least non-land tutors, in my decks, but Open the Armory is inexpensive and will find us something at sorcery speed that we can use for Noctis basically the next turn. Because we just, or even that same turn if we get one of our very cheap equipment, many of which we have. So yeah, Open the Armory is a solid choice here as sort of a toolbox card. Again, I'm not a big fan of tutors in Commander, but this one is a pretty solid one and it's not too expensive. The Iron Crag is next from Wilds of Eldraine. 2 generic mana for a legendary artifact that taps for colorless. So this is a mana rock. A 2 mana rock, that sounds good to me. And it says whenever a legendary creature we control enters, we may have the Iron Crag become a legendary equipment artifact named Everflame Hero's Legacy. If we do, it gains Equip 3, and equipped creature gets +3/+3 and loses all of their abilities. So the Iron Crag, it's sort of the opposite of our Dowsing Dagger, in the sense that Dowsing Dagger is an equipment that can become a mana source. Iron Crag is a mana source that can become an equipment. So this is not a very exciting one. I mean, equip 3 to give +3/+3 and that's all, and it stops being able to tap for mana. Yeah, it's not very exciting. I was a little sad when they previewed this card because the art by Adam Paquette is gorgeous and it references Embercleave from the original Throne of Eldraine set. However, in this deck, it's great because it's a 2 mana rock, which is already very efficient mana production for us, and it triggers and can become an equipment whenever a legendary creature enters, which our commander is going to be doing basically every turn thanks to Warp Strike. Now, we can't have our commander enter and then automatically equip Everflame, the Iron Crag, because our commander is going to need to target that equipment when he first comes in, which means this ability is going to be on the stack at the same time. Even if this resolves first, it wouldn't be a valid target for Noctis before that, because Noctis does not say you may attach an equipment you control. It says target equipment. So we have to be able to choose an equipment that's actually a target, and the moment that the Iron Crag could be transforming into Everflame, it's not already Everflame. However, it's in play. We have Noctis in play, Noctis re-enter play, and we use Noctis to put a different equipment onto him as the Iron Crag transforms. Then next turn, when we Warp Strike with Noctis again, or if we want to just pay for it, we can get the Iron Crag attached to Noctis once it's already become Everflame. So it gives us pretty good situations here. It's able to give us cheap mana and becomes a powerful equipment that we can use on a later turn. So yeah. Wrecking Ball Arm is next. This is from the Final Fantasy Commander product. It's from Final Fantasy VII, I suppose. Don't really know what's going on here, but I guess we're going to bust them up. So for 2 generic mana, we get a legendary equipment that equips for 7 or equips a legendary creature for 3, so the same as our Blackblade Reforged, and it gives that equipped creature a base power and toughness of 7/7 and makes them unblockable by creatures power 2 or less. Maybe not relevant, but it's a little bit of evasion for us, and might be useful at some point if we don't want to Warp Strike in Noctis, and rather just leave the Wrecking Ball arm equipped and equip something else by paying for it on the next turn. And giving him +7/+7 as a base power and toughness is sort of like a 5 power boost, so yeah, seems good. Next up is one of the most expensive cards in our deck. It's Caduceus, Staff of Hermes from Assassin's Creed. 2 and a white for a legendary equipment that equips for double white and gives the equipped creature lifelink. However, as long as we have 30 or more life, they also get +5/+5, indestructible, and prevent all damage that would be dealt to this creature. So one of our best protective abilities on an equipment that also makes our commander have +5/+5. Lifelink also doesn't hurt as a way to survive the game a little longer when our board doesn't have many blockers and our commander is attacking every turn. So yeah, Caduceus is pretty sweet as a way to protect our commander and also make him bigger so that we can get to the 3-hit range. Celestial Armor is also a protective card. For 2 and a white, we get an equipment that equips for 3 and a white, but has flash and it snaps on when it enters. When it enters, we attach it to a creature we control, and that creature gains hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Great way to protect our commander by holding up 3 mana. It also gives them +2/+0 and flying. Flying might be relevant, +2/+0 certainly will be. Yeah, Celestial Armor is pretty good, and amazing art. Champion's Helm is next. I really like this one. 3 generic mana for an equipment that equips for 1 and gives +2/+2, so not that big of a power and toughness bonus for the casting cost, but as long as the equipped creature is legendary, it has hexproof. This is one of the cards that can give us a great way to leave Noctis in play after we've done our attack, and we Warp Strike the next turn if we want to, but we can also just add equipment to him without Warp Striking in order to keep our Champion's Helm power and toughness bonus and the hexproof. Heirloom Blade is next. This is a weird one. 3 generic mana for an equipment that gives +3/+1 and equips for 1. And it says whenever an equipped creature dies, we can reveal cards from the top of our library until we reveal a creature card that shares a type with it, put that card in our hand, put the rest on the bottom in a random order. So we sort of cascade into another human or noble if Noctis dies. We don't want Noctis to die, but eventually someone's going to interact with him, which is fine. By that point, it's pretty likely Noctis is able to be replayed from the command zone, and we might have 3 mana left over that we can use to immediately activate his Warp Strike and have him attack that same turn. Heirloom Blade will not find us another noble. We don't have any others in this deck, but we do have 2 other humans, both of which are good for us and give us card advantage. I think it's just card advantage for both of them. And in any case, this kind of draws us a card in that way. So yeah, Heirloom Blade, pretty sweet for us. Next up, we have Nettlecyst. Love Nettlecyst. This is 3 generic mana for an equipment that equips for 2 and gives +1/+1 for each artifact and or enchantment we control. That's good. We've got 3 enchantments in the deck, so it might add to this as well. But otherwise, this is another cranial plating effect for us. It also has Living Weapon, which means when it enters, we make a 0/0 black Phyrexian Germ creature token and then attach Nettlecyst to it. So this is a creature for us until we want to put it on Noctis. When we do, that Germ is going to die because it's going to lose the bonus that Nettlecyst is giving it, unless, I guess for some other reason, maybe we have a cheap to equip creature, or a cheap to equip, equipment, rather, to put on the Germ and have that Germ hold that equipment, and as long as that equipment's giving a toughness bonus, then when we move Nettlecyst off of it onto Noctis, the Germ won't die. It's a possibility. You never know. So yeah, it is worth seeing, though, that this Germ will enter as a 0/0 rather than a larger creature, even though it's getting Nettlecyst attached to it, so it won't trigger Doc Ock's tentacles, which is fine. Weird to think about tentacles on a Phyrexian Germ, don't like that, so I'm glad it doesn't work. Next is Bioorganic Carapace from the Spider-Man set. 2, a white and a blue, for an equipment that equips for 2, and when it enters, we snap it on. We attach it to target creature we control. It says equipped creature gets +2/+2, so not a great power and toughness boost for the amount we're spending on it, but it does equip automatically, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card for each modified creature you control. Obviously, it's going to be at least one card because the equipped creature is equipped and therefore modified. So this is kind of curiosity for us. +2/+2 and draw a card, not a bad way to get repeated card draw in our deck. We have Dancer's Chakrams next. This is a cool one from the Final Fantasy Commander decks. This is 3 and a white for an equipment that equips for 3 and has Job Select, which is a different version, kind of Living Weapon. When it enters, we make a 1/1 colorless hero creature token and then attach the Chakrams to it. That hero won't die when the Chakrams leave it because it's a 1/1, so we've got a little blocker, little hero that can maybe hold other equipment for us, whatever we need. Or we can leave the Chakrams on it, because what it does is it says equipped creature gets +2/+2, has lifelink, and other commanders you control get +2/+2 and have lifelink. And it makes that equipped creature into a performer in addition to its other types. So Dancer's Chakrams is an equipment that we don't need to equip to Noctis. We can leave it on this little hero token, or we can put it on that Germ token, or whatever other creature we want, because as long as it's equipped, that equipped creature has this ability. It gains the ability to give our commander +2/+2 and lifelink. So Noctis is getting pumped up as long as the Chakrams are attached to someone. Obviously it says other commanders, so we can't attach them to Noctis and get it to double up on Noctis, but this is pretty sweet in that it gives our commander a boost without us having to actually take the boost away from another creature in the process. Leyline Axe is next. Love this card. I did so well with this at the Foundation's pre-release. Good memories there. So Leyline Axe is 4 generic mana for an equipment that equips for 3, but if it's in our opening hand, we can begin with the game with it on the battlefield because it's a leyline. Pretty good. So we might be able to get around this cost entirely if it's just in our opening hand. And it gives +1/+1, not much, but double strike and trample, quite a lot. So Noctis going from a 2/3 to a 3/4 double strike is like Noctis getting +4/+4 because the amount of damage he's going to do goes from 4 to 6. So yeah, and trample is evasion. So if we're not going to make him unblockable with his warp strike, then this is also pretty sweet for us. Now we get to our last two. Machinist's Arsenal is another job select card. It's 4 and a white for an equipment that equips for 4 and comes with a hero token attached to it. And gives +2/+2 for each artifact we control and makes the equipped creature into an artificer in addition to its other types. So this is sort of double cranial plating. So it's an expensive card, but it makes us a big creature, a 1/1 that becomes big immediately, and then can make Noctis into a very big creature. All of our cranial plating effects can be game winning for us, and this is no different. Last, we have Heir and Priwen. Let me know in the comments what the actual pronunciation of this is, because I do not know. This is Final Fantasy, and that's not something I'm familiar with. This is 6 generic mana for a legendary equipment that equips for 5 and gives equipped creature base power and toughness XX, where X is your life total. So if this is causing Noctis to have a lesser power than he already has, that means we are at 1 life, and it may be the end for us anyway. Obviously, this doesn't overlap very well with Wrecking Ball Arm. Whichever equipment, if both of them are equipped to the same creature, is equipped second, is the one that's going to take precedence for that creature. But yeah, this is the card that maybe if Noctis gets it on him, it just ends someone's game no matter what their life total was at. Because if our life total is at least 21, then Noctis, or at least 19 I should say, or no, 21, I'm sorry. When Noctis attacks and isn't blocked, he's going to do 21 commander damage to them in 1 hit, and that's it for him. This may not be the card that you go find with Open the Armory, because 6 mana is a lot, and then you've got to pay 3 to Warp Strike Noctis as well. But you could always open the Armory, find this equipment, and then spend 3 more to Warp Strike Noctis on the same turn. Next turn, Noctis will return, and as long as we've played this prior to Noctis returning, then Noctis will return, during the declare attacker step, we can auto-equip this, swing in, and that's it. Seems fun. That is our equipment section. We also have a section I'm calling Suit Up, which includes a card we've already seen, Cranial Plating. These cards are all ones that can attach equipment to our commander at instant speed. So we've seen Cranial Plating already. It can attach itself at instant speed if we pay 2 black. Stolen Uniform is a single blue instant that says choose target creature we control and target equipment. Does not have to be equipment we control, so if someone else has better equipment than us, we can use that. It says gain control of that equipment until end of turn and attach it to the chosen creature. When we lose control of that equipment this turn, if it's attached to a creature we control, we unattach it. So we get to steal an equipment if there is one to steal. But really what this means is we gain control of an equipment we already had control of, doesn't matter. It's just attach it at instant speed for a single blue. So we can put one of our big equipment onto our commander. After our commander's Warp Strike ability, or after their Enter trigger, I should say, has put a different equipment on them. So this lets us double up. That's what this section is for. Battlefield Improvisation, pretty similar. A single, it's white, it's 1 and a white for an instant to give +2/+2 to a creature, and we can attach any number of equipment to it if it's attacking. So we use this during our attack, make our commander into a 4/5 that has all of the equipment on our board attached to him. This might just kill someone if we play this a little later on in the game. Next up is Forge Anew. Forge Anew is 2 and a white for an enchantment that says when it enters, return target equipment card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So a little bit of equipment recursion. If someone decides to blow up our Colossus Hammer, we can get Forge Anew to bring it back for us. And during our turn, we may activate equip abilities anytime we could cast an instant. So instant speed equipping, this enchantment just sticks around as opposed to the last 2 cards we looked at, which are instants, so therefore one-time use. Forge Anew lets us just pay the equip costs for things and put them on Noctis, which means we have a few cards that don't have too huge of an equip cost, some that do have it, but what we do is we just choose to take the ones that cost more to equip and let Noctis Warp Strike, and then his Enter trigger will equip those equipment. Then we use Forge Anew's ability their permission. It's permission that it gives us to activate equip abilities at instant speed to pay for the cheaper ones and put those on Noctis as well. In addition, we can pay 0 generic mana rather than pay the equip cost of the first equip ability we activate during each of our turns. Attaching an equipment to Noctis with his Enters trigger is not activating an equip ability. So this lets us even cheat on equip abilities as well. So Forge Anew, very nice for us as a way of suiting up our commander. And that covers our the cards that mostly fit in our game plan. Oh hey, did you like the video? Nice, thank you. Anyway, you don't have to like the video, I'm just kidding. I appreciate you being here either way. Anyway, there's more where that came from, so I want to talk about the cards that supplement our game plan, but first, let's go over these sections of support for our game plan, starting with our card advantage section. As usual, I use the word draw as just a shorthand tag to make it simple to build these decks. It doesn't mean that all of these cards necessarily draw us a card. It's just a way to get access to more spells. Like Adaptive Omni Tool. If it's equipped to a creature that attacks, we look at the top 6, and we can put an artifact from among them into our hand. We're not drawing that card, but we are getting it into our hand, so it feels like drawing it. There are 38 artifacts in this deck, so pretty likely that we're going to see one in the top 6. I thought that was pretty funny to see that one of the subtypes for artifact in this is bird. The reason is because it is a creature subtype for Baleful Strix. This is a blue and a black for a 1/1 artifact creature, bird, that has flying and death touch, and when it enters, it draws us a card. And has this incredible Nilsham art. Love the Strix. Just a great creature. It can hold equipment if we need it to. It can block anything. It's a flyer. It's got death touch. No one wants to attack into this and lose their better creature to a 1/1. And it replaces itself when we cast it. Yeah, love the Strix. Next we have Dour Port Mage. I really like this little grumpy frog from Bloomborough. 1 and a blue for a 1/3 frog wizard that says whenever one or more other creatures we control leave the battlefield without dying, we draw a card. So every time we activate Warp Strike, Noctis is going to leave the battlefield without dying, so we'll draw a card. Dour Port Mage is a great way to just keep getting us more and more cards. And also to protect our commander. If we don't have the 3 mana to Warp Strike him in response to like a removal spell, we might have 2 mana, 1 and a blue, that we can pay and tap the Port Mage to bounce him to our hand. Return another target creature we control to its owner's hand. So that kind of protectiveness is a nice little bonus, and it triggers this because that creature will leave the battlefield without dying. Pretty good. We've got a Mind Stone right here. Mind Stone is really a mana rock, but we've got the ability to draw cards from it, or a card from it. For 2 generic mana, it's an artifact that taps for colorless mana, or we can pay 1, tap, and sack it to draw a card. So late game, or if we're just desperate for a card in our hand, we can cash in the Mind Stone and turn it into a different card. Not bad. We've seen Open the Armory. It is in both this section and that other section, just because it does find us a card, but it's specifically going to find us an equipment, so we're going to be able to use it to equip up our commander that way. Satoru the Infiltrator. This is one of the humans in our deck. It's a blue and a black for a 2/3 legendary human ninja rogue. We do have a ninja here. Surprise, surprise. He has Menace, and whenever he and/or one or more other non-token creatures we control enter, if none of them were cast or no mana was spent to cast them, we draw a card. So this is here for the same reason as our Dour Port Mage, but it cares more about Noctis entering than him leaving without dying. So Satoru is a nice evasive body for 2 mana that's going to keep drawing us cards every time we activate our commander's ability and he comes back in. Candlekeep Sage is next. This is a legendary enchantment background for 2 and a blue, which gives our commander, when this creature enters or leaves the battlefield, draw a card. So that means activate Warp Strike, draw 2 cards, because we'll draw it when Noctis leaves and then when he re-enters. We don't draw the 2 cards at the same time, but for 3 mana, we just have this enchantment sitting on the battlefield, helping our Nettle Assist get pumped up, and giving us more and more cards every time we use our commander's ability. It sort of combines what we get from Satoru and what we get from the Dour Port Mage. Emry is next. Lurker of the Loch is 2 and a blue for a 1/2 legendary Merfolk Wizard, originally from Throne of Eldraine, but you're not going to pay 2 and a blue for Emry because she's got affinity for artifacts, meaning she costs 1 less for each artifact we control. So likely we're going to just pay a single blue for this 1/2 Merfolk. When she enters, we mill 4 cards, and then we can tap her to choose target artifact card in our graveyard and cast it this turn. We still have to pay for it, timing rules still apply, but it gives us the ability to, if our artifacts get milled by someone else or by us, by Emry, if our artifacts get removed, we can cast them again. In a way, Emry puts 4 cards in our graveyard, it's likely that at least one of them is going to be an artifact, and on our next turn, we're allowed to cast that, so it's sort of like Emry drew us a card. That's why she's in this section. And giving us access to recur cards from our graveyard is also a little bit of card advantage sometimes. Heirloom Blade, we've already talked about. When the equipped creature dies, we can go find a creature that shares a type with it. So if Noctis dies, we might find Satoru. We just have to find the first one in our deck. Yeah. Lauren is our other human. Do we only have 2 humans? I think so. Yeah, 3 humans including Noctis. So Lauren's the other option. Lauren is 2 and a white for a 2/1 legendary human artificer with vigilance. When she enters, she destroys up to 1 target artifact or enchantment, so she's disenchant on a stick, and we can tap her, and we and another opponent each draw a card. We can do this over and over, making more goodwill with whatever opponent we gave some little plant tokens to with our Dowsing Dagger. And yeah, just getting repeatable card draw in addition to a removal effect. Last, we've seen Bioorganic Carapace, which lets us draw a card for each modified creature we control when the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player. That may just be 1, but it's repeatable, and it's based on doing combat damage, which is what we want to do in this deck anyway. Great. That is our card advantage section. Let's talk about acceleration, which again I just shorthanded as ramp. So, of course we're running Soul Ring. It costs 1, it taps for 2 colorless mana, it's an artifact, it's the best mana rock in the deck. You should run this card in most of your decks. Arcane Signet, also very good, especially in our 3-color deck. It's 2 generic mana for an artifact that taps for 1 mana of any color in our commander's color identity. So in this deck, white, blue, or black. A 2 mana untapped rock that taps for colored mana of any color we need. Yes, of course we're using this. Azorius Signet. Oh, and Demir's Signet. And our Orzhov Signet. We've got all 3. So the Signets work like this. They are 2 generic mana rocks that tap for 2 colors of that color pair, but we have to pay a mana into them to activate them at all. So these filter mana for us. We can take 1 mana of any color and make it into 2 mana, a white and a blue. So while we are tapping 2 mana sources, whatever we're tapping to pay into this, and the Signet itself, we're getting 2 mana out of it, so that's pretty good. It's a 2 mana rock, it just can't work by itself. But we're gonna have lands. Filtering this is fine. We just wanted to make sure we had access to colored mana in inexpensive mana rocks, and so our Signets are a good choice for that. Dowsing Dagger we've already seen. It is ramped because we can pretty easily flip it into a land that taps for 3. Felwar Stone is also here. This is 2 generic mana for a rock that taps for 1 mana of any color that a land an opponent controls could produce. So we're running 3 colors, so what's the likelihood that our opponents are nothing but red and green? We're probably going to get this as an untapped rock that produces at least 1 of our colors, and perhaps all 3 of them. Or if an opponent's running something like a Chromatic Lantern, or a Gateway Plaza, something that would cause 1 or all of their lands to tap for any color, then Felwar Stone can also tap for any color, including all of our 3 colors. We've seen the Mind Stone, Orzhov Signet we just talked about. Now we've got the Talismans. We've seen the Signets, here are the Talismans. Talismans are 2 mana untapped rocks that tap for colorless, but can also tap for 1 or 1 of 2 colors if we're willing to let them do a damage to us. This is a great deal, because the idea is, if we need this mana, then it's the difference between us being able to cast a spell or not. Would you pay a life to get a mana? Yeah, it means you're able to cast a spell more often. So even if you take a few damage over the course of the game, the Talismans are giving you the ability to make whatever mana you need in that moment, and not have to worry about it. And if you don't need that colored mana from the Talisman, you just make colorless mana. Problem solved. We've seen the Iron Crag. Iron Crag, of course, is another 2 mana rock, taps for colorless, and can be an equipment for us. And finally, we've got Thran Dynamo. This is 4 generic mana for an artifact that taps for 3 colorless mana. So kind of expensive as an acceleration piece for us compared to all of the rest of our acceleration, which costs 1 or 2. However, the Dynamo is so good because not only does it immediately rebate us for all but 1 of that mana, so it's like we spent 1 on it, we just had to have 4 to do so. But now, much like we mentioned with like I mentioned with the Lost Veil, we can set the Dynamo aside, and this just pays for Noctis' ability every turn. This frees up all of our land to use for spells, and we can just use Thran Dynamo every time we need to activate Noctis. So that kind of quick boost to immediately making 3 mana is pretty invaluable for us. I considered putting Gilded Lotus in this as well, which makes 3 mana of any 1 color, but costs 5. And that's a fine inclusion if you want to go that way. I thought the Dynamo was all we really needed, but a little bit more mana, never hurts. So that is our acceleration section. Let's talk about interaction now, which is right here. Little light on interaction this time because we're a little heavier than normal on our Wraths. So we're running Dispatch. This is a single white mana for an instant that taps a creature. But if we have Metalcraft, meaning if we control 3 or more artifacts, instead it exiles that creature. So as long as we have Metalcraft, this is just better than Swords to Plowshares. It's unconditional exile on a creature, and the likelihood that we're going to have 3 or more artifacts is very high. Speaking of Swords to Plowshares, we've got it and Path to Exile right here. I often like to say these are basically the same card with 1 change. They're both instants that cost a single white mana that exile a target creature and give that creature's controller a kickback. If you Swords to Plowshares, that creature's controller will gain life equal to the creature's power. Path to Exile lets that creature's controller rampant growth. Search their library for a basic land, put it on the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. So both of these, and in this deck, Dispatch as well, are all incredible, powerful removal spells. Dispatch is a little bit conditional. These other two give a kickback, so yeah, we want all of them. We're also running Spectacular Tactics from Spider-Man. 1 and a white for an instant that lets us either put a 1/1 counter on a creature we control and it gains hexproof until end of turn, or destroy a creature with power 4 or greater. So we're mostly using this to blow up dangerous threats or commanders that our opponents have. But we have the ability to protect our commander, and if we're doing so while our commander's attacking, we're also going to do a little extra damage that turn. This will go away, obviously, when we Warp Strike Noctis the next time, but that's fine. Vanishing Verse is next. It's 1 and a black for an instant that exiles a monocolored permanent. So similar to that monocolor hexproof that we got from our Dragonfire Blade. Yeah, that Vanishing Verse is a card I don't see that often from original Strixhaven, but it's pretty good. It can do an awful lot. Next up is Emergency Eject. This is a card that I often say is underplayed in Commander. The kind of decks that I build are meant for tables that usually look at land destruction negatively. So if you're running Generous Gift in your white deck, that's reasonable. Generous Gift is 2 and a white for an instant that destroys a permanent and gives that permanent's controller a 3/3 green elephant creature token. But if you're not looking to destroy lands, which again is often the case at these kinds of tables, you probably want something that can't hit lands and gives, and in exchange, what your opponent is given is not as bad as a 3/3. So Stroke of Midnight from Wilds of Eldraine is 2 and a white for destroy target non-land permanent, and they get a 1/1 human rather than that 3/3 elephant. But if you're doing that, you might as well use Emergency Eject and not give them a creature at all. This is 2 and a white for an instant that destroys a non-land permanent and gives that permanent's controller a lander token, which is a Wayfarer's Bauble, an artifact that if you pay 2, tap and sack it, they get to Rampant Growth. Search for a basic, put it on the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. So not only do they not have a creature that they could attack or block with, but if they want to get that land, they have to pay into the lander token in order to get it. Sort of the way you have to do, or they don't have to do, with Path to Exile. Path to Exile, obviously much better, but it does give them that land, for our mana. Emergency Eject, more expensive for us, but it forces them to go get that land with their own mana and can hit any non-land permanent. So yeah. Imprisoned in the Moon is next. This is 2 and a blue for an aura that enchants a creature, land, or planeswalker and makes that permanent into a colorless land that taps for colorless and makes it lose all other card types and abilities. This card is great for shutting down your opponent's commanders if you need to, because if you do that, then you have ramped them a little bit. You've given them access to another mana producer, but unless they have a way to interact with auras or their own lands, it's going to be stuck there. They don't have the ability to sacrifice it, or, if it's turned into like an Eaten by Piranhas or Witness Protection type effect, a Humble effect, they wouldn't be able to block with it or attack with it. So it's kind of stuck there unless they find a way to bounce or destroy Imprisoned in the Moon. So pretty solid. It can also, obviously, hit something other than a commander, and then you've gotten rid of the biggest, scariest thing that was threatening you at that time. But yeah, if it's not going to be that, hitting someone's commander can really slow down their game plan. We've seen Lauren. Lauren enters and disenchants an artifact or enchantment. And we're also running Voidrend because it's an Esper deck, and it's a great card in Esper colors. White, a blue, and a black for an instant that can't be countered and destroys a non-land permanent. So this is doing the same thing that Emergency Eject is doing, but it's doing it uncounterably, and they get no benefit from it. That is our interaction section. Here are our Wraths. We're running 3 of them in this deck because since we're so low on our creature count, we don't mind wiping the board because we are not going to have that much invested in it. We're going to start with, I'll scroll up a little bit so it's a little nicer. We're going to start with Supreme Verdict. Love this card. If you listen to MTG Remy and you want to hear the Supreme Verdict rap, it's a pretty good song. Anyway, this is 1 double white and a blue for a sorcery that can't be countered and destroys all creatures. Pretty sweet. As a 4-mana Wrath, that's sort of the going rate for a solid board wipe. This can't be countered, that's pretty good. Gets rid of every creature, so if we can cast this on a turn when our commander is not in play, for example, if last turn we spent 3 mana to Warp Strike him, and now it's pre-combat, we cast Supreme Verdict, then we go to combat. On our Declare Attacker step, Noctis will re-enter. We didn't have to even recast him. Pretty good. We can also Supreme Verdict on the stack, activate Warp Strike that same turn if we want to spend the 7 mana in the same turn. It's a possibility too. Or we can cast Unstable Glyph Bridge. This is 3 and double white for an artifact that says when it enters, if we cast it, for each player we choose a creature with power 2 or less that player controls. Then destroy all creatures except the creatures chosen this way. Noctis is going to be power 2 or less if we have just Warp Striked him, assuming he doesn't have an equipment on him that is pumping up his power right then. You know, good way for us to move things around if we need to. We can also use the Avoid a Wrath by Warp Striking trick with this Glyph Bridge as well. And obviously, if Noctis actually does get removed, we can just Glyph Bridge after the fact. Now we're not losing anything. Or if we're replaying Noctis, we Glyph Bridge right then. 8 mana or 5 mana to replay him, then the next turn, 5 mana to Glyph Bridge. He doesn't die. We use our 3 remaining mana, assuming we have it, to Warp Strike him right then. You see how it works. We can also craft with Artifact for 3 and double white. What that means is we exile this and another artifact we control, or a card in our graveyard, artifact in our graveyard, and we pay 3 and double white. And we get to exile this and return it transformed. We can only do this as a sorcery speed, but it will come back as Sandswirl Wanderglyph, which is a 5/3 artifact creature golem that flies. Notably, this is the card I mentioned that will trigger Doc Ock's Tentacles, because even though there's no mana cost on this side, a double-faced card, nowadays, has the mana value of its front face, if it doesn't have something on the back, if it's not a modal double-faced card. So Sandswirl Wanderglyph, it will come in, and if Doc Ock's Tentacles are in play, we can auto-equip them to this, and it becomes a 9/7 flyer. But that's not what we care about for it. What we care about is the fact that it says, whenever an opponent casts a spell during their turn, they can't attack us or planeswalkers we control this turn. And if they attack us or a planeswalker we control, they can't cast spells this turn. So that means this is a protective ability. It incentivizes our opponents to attack someone else, because if they want to cast spells and to go to combat on their turn, they're going to have to attack someone besides us. If they cast a spell, we are protected from them during their turn. And if they attack, well, we know that they're not going to use any magical effects. This is the game is magic, good grief. Any instants, any tricks that aren't already on board. You know, unless they have something like a channel effect, we're not worried about it. So yeah, the Wanderglyph can really protect us in ways that seem unexpected. But if you played LCI Standard, you remember this card. Last, we have Vanquish the Horde, and we're using the Final Fantasy Commander printing for it. The art. It's a big monster. Anyway, for 6 and double white, we have a sorcery that destroys all creatures, but it costs 1 less for each creature on the battlefield. So another way for us to say, hey, everyone else's playmats are getting crowded with creatures. We don't have that many creatures. We're just going to get rid of them all. And if there are at least six creatures in play, we can just pay 2 for it. If we want, we could be real sneaky. And if we've got 5 mana available and Noctis is in play, we can cast this for, let's say there's Noctis in play and 5 other creatures. So we're getting a discount, and this is now just 2 white. We cast this for double white. And while it's on the stack, we respond with Noctis and Warp Strike him. He leaves play, he goes to exile, Vanquish the Horde will resolve, and then Noctis will come back in during our Declare Attacker step the next time we get one. The reason that works is because we've already paid the cost once this is on the stack, so it doesn't matter that the number of creatures on the battlefield has changed before it resolves. So that means for 5 mana, assuming 5 other creatures in play, we not only protect our commander and get to attack with him, but we also kill everything else in play. Seems good. So those are our wraths, and that covers the support section for our deck. Let's go now to our supplemental sections that give us a little bit more payoffs, let's say. This is our payoff section. We've seen Dour Port Mage, actually. It gives us a card every time we do something. I should say what payoffs are. Payoffs are cards that reward us for what we were going to do anyway. So for example, Dour Port Mage and Satoru and Candlekeep Sage all reward us by letting us draw cards when one of our creatures leaves without dying, or enters without being cast or having mana spent on it, or when our commander leaves or enters. So we're doing all of that with our commander, so we're getting paid off with it with cards. We also have Genku, Future Shaper. 2, a white and a blue for a 2/5 legendary Moonfolk wizard from Kamigawa that says, whenever another non-token permanent we control leaves the battlefield, so that's our commander, we choose one of these that hasn't been chosen this turn, and we create a token with these characteristics. We get either a 2/2 white fox with vigilance, a 1/2 moonfolk with flying, or a 1/1 rat with lifelink. Pretty good. So every time we use our warp strike, we're going to get a creature to sort of guard the door while we're waiting for Noctis to come back. If we need a flying blocker, great. If we're a little bit concerned about our life total, 1/1 lifelink isn't much, but it's something. And all of these creatures can hold equipment. In addition, we can pay 3, a white and a blue, and put a 1/1 counter on each creature we control. That includes our commander, if he's in play at the time. We can do this at instant speed during combat to add a little bit of extra damage to whatever Noctis is doing. Usually, we're not activating this ability in this deck, because our deck is a little bit mana hungry. But if we get into the late game, it's certainly possible that we might be able to, and it makes our tokens that we've created with Genku, as well as Genku himself, and our commander, or Genku themselves, I don't know Genku's pronouns, more powerful. That is our payoff section. We also have a synergy section, which are cards that, rather than giving us a reward for what we were going to do anyway, they get stronger and help the things that we're doing. So Omen Hawker is the first one. I didn't expect to put this in the deck, but it actually works really well. For a single blue, we get a 1/1 Octopus Advisor that taps for a colorless and a blue, but only to activate abilities. In a way, what Omen Hawker does is makes it so our commander's Warp Strike ability only costs a single mana. Because once we've cast Omen Hawker, we tap any of our mana sources for 1 mana, plus the Omen Hawker, and that makes up the other 2. So this is sort of much like we've talked about with Thran Dynamo and the Lost Veil. It just sits there and exists to help our commander be warp striking all over the place. It's just very mana efficient to do so, because it's 1 mana that taps for 2. Even if we can only use it for that one ability, we're going to be using that ability a lot, so it's almost like a soul ring just for Noctis. In a similar way, we have one of our more expensive cards in the deck. It's Training Grounds, a single blue for an enchantment that makes activated abilities of our creatures cost 2 less to activate, but it can't reduce the mana cost to less than 1 mana. You note, this is basically the same as the Omen Hawker for Noctis. It makes Noctis's activated ability, his Warp Strike ability, cost just 1. So yeah, if we combine the two, if we happen to have Training Grounds and Omen Hawker in play, then we can just activate the Omen Hawker to pay for the 1 mana cost that Noctis's Warp Strike now has, and we've got an extra blue sitting around, which we can't really use except to activate abilities of creatures, which I guess we have Genku, we can activate that with it. That's a possibility. So yeah, both of these are in this section because they help us activate our commander just the same way that Dowsing Dagger, and therefore Lost Veil, and Thran Dynamo do. The other 3 cards in this section are our Cranial Platings, other than Cranial Plating itself, which should be in this section. So let's put it in this section. Good point. Cranial Plating is a synergy card. Don't usually do this during the video record itself, but yeah, makes sense to see why all these cards work that way. Adaptive Omni Tool, +1/+1 for each artifact. Cranial Plating, +1/+0 for each artifact. Nettle Cyst, +1/+1 for each artifact and/or equipment, or enchantment. And Machinist Arsenal, +2/+2 for each artifact. All of them pretty good. So that is our synergy section. Let's talk now about our protection section, ways to protect ourselves and our commander. We've seen most of these. Dragonfire Blade gives the equipped creature hexproof and monocolored. Conqueror's Flail, while it's equipped, means our opponents can't cast spells on our turn. Dour Port Mage lets us bounce a creature, probably our commander, back to our hand so that we can avoid paying commander tax on it. Spectacular Tactics can give a creature a 1/1 counter and hexproof until end of turn. Caduceus, as long as we have 30 or more life, gives the equipped creature indestructible and prevents all damage that would be dealt to it. And Celestial Armor gives the equipped creature hexproof and indestructible the turn it enters, when it snaps onto that creature. Champion's Helm gives the creature hexproof if it's legendary, and the stable Glyph Bridge's backside, the Sand Swirl Wander Glyph, goodness, makes it so it's hard for our opponents to both cast spells and attack us in the same turn, and thereby disincentivizes them from attacking us at all. The last one in this section is Kira, Great Glass Spinner. This is 1 and double blue for a 2/2 legendary spirit, originally from Kamigawa, from Betrayers of Kamigawa, but reprinted in Jumpstart, original Jumpstart. Kira is a 2/2 flyer that says creatures we control have, whenever this creature becomes the target of a spell or ability for the first time each turn, counter that spell or ability. So that means if our opponents want to remove our commander, or any of our creatures, including Kira, they have to have 2 spells to do so in the same turn, or 2 different opponents have to do that, which is us saying, yeah, you're going to have to 2-for-1 yourself in order to get rid of our commander. Kira is great protection for us, and that sticks around, and this, of course, resets every turn. So that is our protection section. We have a little bit of recursion. We've seen it already. Emery lets us pull artifacts out of the graveyard, including the ones that she mills for us, and For Janu lets us pull in a single equipment from the graveyard back to the battlefield when it enters. So that's just once, but yeah, we get it back. That is all we have for recursion. We have a little bit of pump in this deck, ways of making our creatures stronger. Battlefield Improvisation lets us attach any number of equipment to an attacking creature, and even if that creature's not attacking, gives them +2/+2. Spectacular Tactics puts a counter on a creature in the process of giving it hexproof. Dancer's Chakrams give not only the creature that it's equipped with +2/+2, but also our commander +2/+2. So that's why it's in this section, because it pumps up our commander without being attached to them. And Genku, we can pay 5 to put a counter on each of our creatures. Totally fine. Our last section in our spells is this token section. We had more, and there's more in the considering section if you want to see that, but Dancer's Chakrams and Machinist's Arsenal both they both have job select. So they're able to make us a hero that will stick around even when we move the equipment off of it. I know you're thinking, but don't we have at least 1 or 2 living weapons in this deck? We do, Cranial Plating and Nettle Cyst, but I didn't put those in this section because those tokens will die as soon as we move the equipment off of them. And since both of those are Cranial Plating effects, we want to move those equipment. So we will have those temporarily. We could put them in the token section, I guess, but Genku is our other repeatable token creation effect right here. And will happen every time we warp strike with our commander, so pretty good for that. And that covers all of the spells in our deck. As usual, we're going to go over our land base now, starting with our basic lands. We're using these lovely full art Final Fantasy lands. They are all the minimum cost on mana pool, so we're not spending more on this than we would on any other basics, so we might as well. If you know the best Final Fantasy basic arts for our commander from Final Fantasy 15, let me know in the comments. The one thing I do want to mention for this is, as you can see, our next section is bicycle lands. We've got 2 in here, but very shortly, just in a couple of weeks, Secrets of Strixhaven is going to release at time of recording. So we're going to be adding the Orzhov colored, the white-black bicycle and tango lands to our deck. They're just not in during this video, so I recommend you add them if you're putting this deck together. They are called Umbral Eclipse and Eclipsed Step, and they are both in the considering section. What I would do with them is take out a swamp and a plains, since they are both white and black, and then what we're doing is we're adding a swamp and a plains in aggregate, since both of those cards are both swamp and plains. So yeah, it won't change our count of cards that have basic types, but it does expand it a little bit, and so pretty good. However, let's talk about these bicycle lands and what they actually do. Fetid Pools is our example. This is a land that is dual typed. It's an island and a swamp, so it taps for blue or black. It comes in tapped, and we can cycle it for 2 generic mana, meaning we can discard it from our hand for 2 and draw a card. Something we might do if we're, again, desperate for a card, like we were when we were talking about Mindstone, or if it's just late game and we draw this and we just don't need it. So yeah, it gives us a good option to draw rather than play this tap land, or to have a nice tap land. That's good too. If you wanted to upgrade these, I think that the bicycle lands are just very good on their own, but you could certainly upgrade them to shock lands, which are also dual typed dual lands. They don't give you the ability to cycle them, but they're a lot more expensive. So there you go. The reason we're running these dual-typed lands is because we run these check lands. For example, Isolated Chapel. This is a land that taps for white or black, and it enters tapped unless we control a plains or a swamp. So if we have right now, and it would read the same number if we upgraded to those Secrets of Strixhaven, Bicycle, and Tango lands, we've got 19 cards in the deck that have basic types. And so it's pretty likely that all of our check lands are going to come in untapped, so we've got untapped duels. If you wanted to upgrade these, I suppose you could go to the slow land cycle, which is being reprinted as of Secrets of Strixhaven. At least 5 of them are. But they are more expensive than these check lands, so I think the check lands are pretty solid budget inclusions for dual lands. Here are our 5 fixing lands. We're running Command Tower, of course, because it's got the same text as Arcane Signet. Taps for 1 mana of any color in our commander's color identity. This is a land that comes in untapped, and yeah, so it's it's an untapped tri-land, which is great for us. It's exactly what we need. Similarly is Exotic Orchard. Exotic Orchard is to Felwar Stone, there it is, as Command Tower is to Arcane Signet. This is just a Felwar Stone on an untapped land. Everything I said about that is also true here. Totally good for us. We're running Path of Ancestry as well. This is a tap land that has the same text as Command Tower and Arcane Signet. However, it also says whenever we cast a creature spell with its mana, as long as that creature spell shares a creature type with our commander, we scry 1. Our commander shares creature types with itself. I've already talked about the fact that we have 2 other humans in this deck and no other nobles, but even if we were just using this on our commander, it gets us a little bit of scry, and it's a tapped tri-land for us, which is totally fine. Makes all of our colors, works great. We also run Contaminated Landscape. I don't usually put the landscapes in my deck because I'm not looking to run fetch lands for the most part. But in this deck, what I would normally go to, which is Myriad Landscape, which is actual acceleration on a land, it's just very slow. And in this deck, we are a little bit mana hungry because we want to activate Noctis' ability every turn. So I thought Contaminated Landscape would work a little better for us. This comes in untapped and taps for colorless, or we can tap it and sack it to find a basic plains, island, or swamp, put it on the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. This is something we can do if we happen to be having a turn where we have 1 mana we don't need, so we make that mana the Contaminated Landscape mana, and then just crack this and fetch a basic of whatever color we may need in that moment. It's also going to fix our mana that way. So an untapped source of mana that we can also make into a tapped source of colored mana, pretty good. Or we can pay Esper and cycle it. So it gives us even that other option as well. Last in this section is Temple of the False God. Not everyone likes this land, but I think it's perfect for these kinds of decks, especially this one, because it is a little bit of acceleration in our land base. It's just not early acceleration. So this is an untapped land that taps for 2 colorless mana, like Soul Ring. Except we can't tap it at all unless we have 4 or more other lands, so 5 or more lands including itself. So while this is not ideal if our opening hand is just Temple of the False God and a basic swamp, we are able to jump from 4 mana to 6 mana when we play this on turn 5, and that's pretty solid. So being able to use this and like, a Signet or any other singular land, we set those aside, and that's our Noctis activation mana every turn. Pretty good. We're running all 3 Pain lands because the Pain lands are great. They are the same as our Talismans, just in our land base. They tap for colorless, they tap for 1 of 2 colors if they're willing to let them do damage to us. And yeah, that is our that's what we're doing with these. It's just very good fixing and very inexpensive in terms of the cost of these lands monetarily. It's been a couple of years since Dominaria United and the Brothers War, but yeah, so good. I hope they reprint these pretty soon. So if you wanted to upgrade these, I would recommend the Verges, because the Verges are like a check land, but yeah, they come in untapped and make mana right away, and it is colored mana, except the Verges are much more expensive. Scry lands are next. Love the temples. Let's do the Temple of Deceit. This is a tap land that makes blue or black and comes in and scries 1. That's all they do. They're just tapped duels that scry for us, and they cost 15 cents because they're in foundations. Great. A little bit of selection. fixes our mana, that's what we want. You want to upgrade them? Make them into Surveil lands. Surveil lands, so expensive, but if you really want that idea, then that'll work for you. Here are the Tango lands. These are the sort of mirror to the Bicycle lands. These are typed duels, like the Tango lands, and these enter tapped unless we control 2 or more basic lands. In this deck, we've got 15 basics. If we go up to those Secrets of Strixhaven or Jav lands, we're going to be down to 13, so not ideal for it coming in untapped, but it sure could. And so being a typed duel is already fine. Being an untapped typed duel is even better, so it's good to have that flexibility. And of course, these can be upgraded to shock lands if you would like. We've got Arcane Sanctum as our tri-land. This is a worse version of Path of Ancestry because it doesn't scry, which is a worse version of Command Tower. And it's still worth running because a tapped tri-land, that fixes all of our mana, and that sounds great. This comes in tapped, makes the 3 mana that we need. If you want to upgrade this, you could go to Rafine's Tower, which is the Triome version of this. It is typed, so it has all 3 basic land types, and it cycles for 3 generic mana. Much more expensive. Finally, we have these 4 utility lands. Archway of Innovation is great. This is a land that comes in tapped unless we control an island. We've got plenty of islands in the deck. Taps for blue, and we can pay blue and tap it to give the next spell we cast this turn Improvise, meaning we can tap our artifacts to pay for a generic mana for each artifact we tap. This is a great effect because all of our equipment work whether they're tapped or not. So being able to cast one of our big equipment for 2 mana, a blue and tap the Archway, and then we don't put that 2 toward the equipment that we're casting, we just tap a bunch of other equipment and pay for that generic mana cost of the equipment we want to cast. Archway of Innovation can really accelerate us. The more equipment we have, the more accelerated we are by it. This is an effect that is similar to not just Affinity, but Improvise can come into play in a lot of ways. I tried to put Waterbending in this deck because I thought that would work very well for us, and we just didn't have the slots for it. But maybe you will when you build your own version of this deck. We're running Buried Ruin. This is an untapped land that taps for colorless, or we can pay 2, tap and sack it to return an artifact from our graveyard to our hand. A little bit of recursion, just in case we need it. Someone might play a Cleansing Nova, get rid of all of our artifacts, we need to get something back. This is here in our land base to help us do it. Demolition Field is next. I mentioned earlier on that people who play at the kind of tables that these decks are designed for don't want to see their land bases get blown up, and that's fair. You don't have to be the kind of person who likes that to enjoy Commander. So Demolition Field is a good answer for any non-basic lands that are problematic at the table without actually denying someone mana. Because if somebody's running a Rogue's Passage and they're attacking with their Commander unblockably, then you want to stop them from doing that. If they're running a Glacial Chasm and preventing damage, you want to stop that as well. Demolition Field can handle that. This is an untapped land that taps for colorless mana, or we can pay 2, tap and sack it to destroy a non-basic land that an opponent controls, but wait, that opponent gets to search their library for a basic, put it on the battlefield untapped, and then shuffle. And so do we. So neither we nor they are down a land, but we've gotten rid of something that was causing our plan to work not as well, or their plan to work too dangerously for us. And as long as we both had basics left in our library, we're not down mana, and we're doing fine. This is something that I think anyone can be okay with. Finally, we have Rogue's Passage of our own. In case we want to attack with Noctis, and we don't want to lose the equipment we've already equipped him with, we can pay 4 and tap to make a creature unblockable this turn. We can also, of course, tap the Rogue's Passage for mana. So this is a pretty cool effect, just letting us slip in and win with our commander damage. That's what we want for any Voltron deck. We can also use this on our opponent's creatures, because it doesn't say target creature you don't control. I'm sorry, target creature you control. It doesn't say that. So we could make a deal with an opponent to let them attack a different opponent, and that's helping us because that different opponent is also our opponent. We just want to make sure that we activate Rogue's Passage after the opponent we're helping has attacked, because that creature being unblockable could mean that they could attack us with it if they haven't already declared as an attacker against someone else. But if we make a deal, then we're likely saying, hey, just leave us alone for a turn cycle or two. And they probably will. And we get to get rid of a different opponent. Or maybe one of our opponents is attacking a different opponent and they've got a really good attack except for the blocks that the second opponent could make. We can activate our Rogue's Passage without them asking and just make their creature unblockable, as long as we do it before blocks are declared. And now everyone's surprised, and hopefully one of our opponents is either taken out or in a much worse position now after that, and it's because we spent no resources on it other than our mana. Pretty good. And that will sum it up. Thanks to Flexing42 for requesting this commander, as well as for waiting for me to fit it into my weekly rotation. If you'd like to request a commander deck yourself, and you are the patient sort, let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you want to support what I do here, make sure to like and subscribe, ring the bell if you want to be notified when my videos go live, consider becoming a member of the channel, and remember most of all that Magic is fun. You should play more Magic.